The phone rang exactly 6 times. I know because I counted every ring without picking it up. At 68 years old, I believed silence could punish someone more deeply than words ever could. I let the call go unanswered, poured myself another cup of tea, and whispered, "Now she knows how I feel." For 20 years, I thought I had won that argument. I had actually lost the only friend who ever loved me like a sister. If you stay with me, I'll tell you why one unanswered phone call became the heaviest thing I have ever carried, and why I still listen for 6 rings every Thursday afternoon. My name is Eleanor, and I am 88 years old. I have outlived my husband by 16 years, my younger brother by 9, and nearly every neighbor who once knew my name. Memory becomes strange at this age. I forget where I leave my glasses almost every morning. But I remember that telephone ringing on October 14, 2006, as clearly as if it were yesterday. Some regrets don't grow old. They simply learn to wait. I met Helen when we were 12 years old. We shared the same wooden school desk because there weren't enough desks for everyone. She had freckles across her nose and a laugh so loud that teachers often sent her into the hallway. I was the quiet one who always finished her homework before anyone else. She stole my pencil on the first day. I stole half of her sandwich at lunch. By the end of the week, we had become inseparable. For 56 years, we celebrated birthdays together. We stood beside each other at our weddings. We held each other's babies. When my husband died of a heart attack at 69, Helen slept on my couch for 11 nights because she knew I couldn't bear the silence. "I'll leave when you ask me to," she said. I never asked. That's what real friendship looked like. Or so I believed. The trouble began over something so small that I feel embarrassed admitting it. My mother's china cabinet. After my mother passed away, I decided to sell the old cabinet. Helen came to help me sort through everything inside. She picked up a porcelain teacup and smiled. "Your mother always promised this one to my daughter." I frowned. "No, she didn't. She told me years ago." "Well, she never told me." Helen laughed softly. "It isn't important." But it suddenly felt important to me. Those cups had belonged to my grandmother. I heard myself say something I wish I could take back. "My family has given enough to yours already." The smile disappeared from Helen's face. "What does that mean?" I could have apologized. Instead, I made it worse. "It means maybe you've expected too much for too long." The room became painfully quiet. She carefully placed the teacup back into the cabinet. "I didn't know you felt that way." "Neither did I." She left without another word. The next morning, I expected her to call. She didn't. So I didn't either. One stubborn day became a week. A week became 3 months. Then a year. People asked what had happened. "We just drifted apart," I would say. It was easier than admitting 2 women in their 60s were behaving like angry children. On birthdays, I wondered whether she still baked her lemon cake. At Christmas, I drove past her house more than once. Her porch lights always looked warm. I never stopped. Pride has a peculiar way of disguising itself as dignity. Then came the phone call. October 14th. A Thursday. I had just finished watering my roses. The telephone rang. I looked at the caller ID. Helen. I stared at her name. "She wants me to apologize first," I muttered. The phone rang once. Twice. 3 times. By the 4th ring, my heart was beating so loudly I almost picked it up. Almost. 5. 6. Silence. I waited for it to ring again. It never did. The following week, I finally decided enough was enough. I drove to her house carrying the lemon cookies she loved. There was a small crowd outside. Cars lined the street. A black wreath hung on the front door. One of her neighbors recognized me. Oh. Her face fell. You haven't heard. I dropped the tin of cookies. Helen had suffered a massive stroke less than an hour after making that phone call. She never regained consciousness. The funeral came and went. I stood in the back of the church where no one would notice me crying. I wanted to tell her daughter I was sorry. The words refused to come. For years, I replayed those 6 rings in my mind. I convinced myself Helen had wanted to apologize. Or perhaps she wanted to argue one last time. There was no way to know. Life moved forward because it always does. I grew older. My grandchildren grew taller. The seasons continued changing without asking whether I was ready. 20 years later, on my 88th birthday, someone knocked on my door. A young woman stood there holding a worn leather notebook. She looked strangely familiar. "I'm Sarah," she said. "Helen's granddaughter." I invited her inside. She smiled nervously. "We've been cleaning out my mother's attic." She placed the notebook on my table. "We found this. It was Helen's diary. I thought you should have it." My hands trembled before I even opened the cover. Most pages contained ordinary things. Shopping lists. Weather. Family birthdays. Then I reached the final entry. October 14th, 2006. Called Eleanor today. My heart stopped. The doctor says I don't have much time before surgery. I've been thinking about our argument every day. The china cabinet never mattered. I miss my best friend. My vision blurred. There was more. Sarah told me pride is just loneliness wearing a prettier dress. Smart girl. I'm calling because I want Eleanor to know she was the best thing that ever happened to my childhood. Then the final sentence. If she doesn't answer today, I'll try again next Thursday. There was no next Thursday. I closed the diary and cried harder than I had at her funeral. For 20 years, I believed the unanswered phone call had ended our friendship. It hadn't. Pride had ended it long before. The call was simply her attempt to save what both of us had been too stubborn to protect. That afternoon, Sarah handed me something else. A tiny porcelain teacup. The same one. My grandmother kept it. I looked at her in confusion. She wrote a note. Sarah unfolded a yellowed piece of paper. "Give this back to Eleanor one day. Tell her I never wanted the cup. I only wanted my friend." The teacup now sits on my kitchen windowsill. Visitors often admire it. They think it's valuable because it's old. It isn't. Its value comes from what it reminds me every single morning. Most arguments are never really about the thing we think we're fighting over. Not the money. Not the dishes. Not the inheritance. Not the teacup. They're about hurt that doesn't know how to introduce itself. If someone crosses your mind today, don't wait for the perfect words. Call. Write. Knock on the door. Being right has never kept anyone warm at a funeral. Every Thursday afternoon, just before 3 o'clock, I make myself a cup of tea in Helen's porcelain cup. Then I sit beside the telephone for a few minutes. Not because I expect it to ring, but because I never want to forget what 6 unanswered rings cost me. Some silences never end. You simply learn to hear them.